Hi, my name is Brian Catalano, and I wanted to tell you how I made a short film in 48 hours with no budget. So I made the short film Wormhole. I conceived the idea within 48 hours. That means somebody invited me to a location and said, do you want to shoot something here? And it was a very special location that gets booked out 3 years in advance. So I knew, one, I wasn't probably going to get this opportunity again, and two, I wasn't probably going to be able to do any pickups or extra shots, or if I miss anything, it was just going to have to be what it is. I got the call from my friend Billy saying you should come up to Joshua Tree to this location and shoot something. And I think what he had intended for me to do was bring my drone and we would just play around a little bit. Little did he know, 24 hours later, I sent him 7-page short script. And poor guy, it was also during one of the biggest heat waves in that area in a couple hundred years or something. And as I'm writing this, I'm thinking this is fun. If it was flowing, everything seemed to be working. It was with the limitations that I knew I was gonna have to be the camera person and one of the actors, and everything else was gonna have to be on a tripod, and we were only probably gonna have a few hours to do this. And 7 pages, if you know, is a lot to do, especially if it's dialogue heavy between two people. There's a lot of setups, there's a lot of coverage. And I'm not very well experienced doing this, creating shot lists, and I'm more experienced writing things, but less experienced carrying those things out. So within a day, I pretty much had the parameters of what I could do with my ideas, which is the location and the minimal equipment that I have and people that I have, and it was really just me and Billy doing the whole thing. And luckily we have a lot of cameras and equipment between us. However, as I'm writing this, I am realizing how difficult this is going to be to shoot. And so I sent him over the script, wondering if he was going to hate me forever for sending it. And I think what happened was he looked it over the night before I came up, because I literally wrote it in 24 hours and I sent it to him the night before I went up. And so he probably just browsed at it on his phone, not really thinking about how difficult it was going to be. And then I show up the next day with all my equipment and my car mounting system, all of my lenses, and my Tascam audio recorder, and we just start shooting. It's basically a 3-act short film. So we just shoot it in a linear fashion. We do first the car driving scene, then we do some establishing shots with the drone, and then everything was moving sort of well. I mounted the camera to the car and we did some nice exterior shots. Now throughout this, I'm not thinking about how audio is gonna sync up. In fact, I was thinking I'm just gonna record all that I can. I'm gonna do some audio recording of the dialogue in the car when we're not driving, just separately, some car tone. And then I'm just gonna shoot as many takes of anything, and hopefully I'll just stitch it all together like a mad Frankenstein. Mad Dr. Frankenstein, I guess. And I was just thinking, I'll just have, the worst case scenario is I'm gonna have too much stuff, but I'll be able to pull it together. Little did I know that is one of the worst case scenarios as well, and not really being able to match up audio across different takes. I'm not also expecting Billy to learn the lines before that or have them memorized. It was a lot of dialogue. I was having to feed him lines as I'm filming and hoping that these will all cut together. It did or didn't. It's as successful as your judgment can be. So we started to do the central dialogue between the two characters, myself and Billy, in the second act, I would say. And this is when it was the hottest outside. The sun was beating down on us. There was heavy, heavy winds. And the wind was probably the most painful part of it, because it was hurting your skin, because you had the heat and the dryness of the desert. It's not like we have any shade, which normally you would have probably wanted to do when filming like that. I'm setting up tripods in 5 different setups, and it wasn't as well thought out because we were also like dehydrated, and hot, and you know, it was a lot. But I thought, okay, I'll just get a lot of coverage. Little did I know I missed a major shot, and all of my audio was garbage. This is probably what took the longest for me to try to do while editing, is clean up my audio or film some ADR. And ADR is automated dialogue recording, I believe. I used to call it additional dialogue recording. It's one of the three. I sat in my closet and recorded into my Tascam and then tried to sync it up to my voice. And it was not easy. And I don't know if I fully did it, but I got it well enough. We eventually finished the third act, and it was a bit smoother because parts of that was a montage and most of it was me behind the camera, because I was actually, at the time, as the character was dying in the outhouse or the outshower. So it went well enough. I had a lot of difficulties with the drone shots because I was pretending to be in the scene while I was operating the drone. A few times I was forgetting to hit record, and it was a nightmare. But I don't regret any of it because I've learned so much about how my audio needs to sync. So I have since got one of those Seramonic Blink 5.2 5200 Pro. So now I'll be able to have some sort of lavalier system as well as a mic next time I do this. So that will never happen again, that I won't, and I'll make sure I have some safety audio as well. Less is more in some respects. You obviously want to get a lot of coverage when you're filming things. You don't want to miss things like I did. I missed a major shot. So there isn't this transition between the first and second act, but I hopefully pulled it off well enough. I used a lot of light flares as transitions to try to cover some of the out of sync dialogue. Again, I learned so much about this. The fact that I could create a short film from an idea to in the can or in the hard drive within 48 hours was pretty remarkable. And what that shows me is that maybe I'm better with limitations than the freedom of you can come up with a story, you've got years or months, a lifetime to come up with it. But when somebody says you have a deadline, you have to come up with something like, now, can you do it? And are your ideas so sacred that you're worried you can only come up with one idea? And I think that's something for me that I have worried about in the past, is I would hang on to great ideas until I didn't know what else to do, and then I would just be stuck with one idea. And I think it's important to have a great idea, maybe come back to it in a few years, which I've done with script. But have a great idea, put it aside. Accept that you will probably have another good idea. If you've had one, you're probably gonna have two. And if you had two, you're probably gonna have a four. So be flexible, be open-minded, don't get caught on the past ideas. Get ready to allow new ideas to come flooding in. And they tend to when you're in a crunch. So the worst part about it has been the editing process. It was a very short conception of idea to filming the idea, and a very protruded post-processing of this idea into something that feels like a short film. It's also the longest short film that I've done with dialogue by myself. You know, I think I did push the limits of what I'm able to do, and I think that's also good. And I really hope that the next time moving forward, and I know the next time moving forward, that all the failures of this one will have taught me what not to do. So I think I've also liked the idea that I have to put limits on my creativity. And having minimal equipment definitely does that. Having only a few lenses, having only one camera, having only one drone, having just one action camera, that's still a lot. And if I can't make something with all of that, if I say, well, I don't have a cinema camera, I don't have cine lenses, or I don't have this, then I'm just giving myself excuses not to create. And I think that's the moral of it, is expressing yourself is the difficult thing. And our default position is not to do that, right? So if there's a reason that can feed into that default position of excuses why we can't create art, why we don't have good enough ideas or good enough equipment, or we're never enough, right? We're never enough to make the things that we want, so we shouldn't make them at all, when in fact, that's just our default ego screaming at us, no, don't take risks, don't do anything, it's all gonna blow up in your face. But I think the issue here is that you have to fight that default position by saying, okay, I don't have that stuff. So then what can I do with the stuff that I do have? Let me use those limits and parameters to mold my creative process. And I think it works every time. Deadlines work and limits work. And I think I've said this on many of these talking head pieces, is that use your weaknesses to your advantage. And I just want to thank you for your attention. And if you like this and like my short film, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me out more than you know. Love you. Thank you.